Okay, perfect. So, yeah, first of all, welcome back to all you parents of Year 11s. So, as Mr. Pike said, he is here as well, and me, Miss Millers, as the head of year. So we're just going to kind of go through some really important things to help support the Year 11s in what is quite an important year for them, really. So we are going to have a look at how we're kind of working together, key staff for you to know about, so for you to contact if you have any issues, some key dates, some interesting information about attendance as well, and then about learning and homework, and then some other information as well. So lots of things that should be useful for you. If you do have any questions throughout, then do please, if they're general questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll get to them at the end. If you have any more specific questions, then when we got onto the key staff members, you can make a note of whoever it is that you wish to contact, which tutor it is that your student is in. So if we kind of have obviously changed it a little bit. So this year, one important change is that the school day has obviously changed. So tutor time is back to being in the morning for half an hour. And in that half an hour, we are doing lots of important things. We've got some PSHE going on, study skills. We've got the reading activity, which is actually really useful at the minute, especially for them because they are looking at A Christmas Carol, which they're going to study in English. So they're getting a chance to read that in forms, first of all, so that they have more time to kind of understand it and spend their English lessons studying it more rather than reading it. And then we have things about careers, obviously, as well. And just obviously that opportunity for them to get ready, settled for the day, and so the tutors can have an opportunity to talk to them as well. So it is kind of really important that it starts at 8:30, that they are there on time. I think especially this year, preparing them for kind of getting into, like, whether it's sixth form, whether it's college, apprenticeships, that like the jobs and things like that will rely on you being on time. And I think punctuality is going to be really important for them to make sure that you're getting into that habit of, I'm there at 8:30, or I'm there slightly before, I'm making sure I'm on time. It's just a really good, important thing to make sure you're doing. So school is open from 8 a.m, so they can come in any time from then. Okay. And obviously we have some key staff members. So obviously you have me, Miss Millers, the head of year, and then, apologies, I put 10s, I forgot that they're actually now Year 11. So form tutors, so 11G have Miss Slima Barker, 11P, Mr. Trott, 11R, Mr. Johnson, and 11Y share two tutors, Mrs. Green and Mrs. Cowtree. If you have any concerns or anything that you kind of want to raise, then your first point of call is your form tutor. So obviously all the students know who their form tutor is. Email those people first of all, and then obviously we can then move up to me. But the first point of call would be your form tutor for any kind of issues or anything that you think, I kind of need a little bit more information on this. That would be your first point of call. Okay. Mr. Pike.
Yeah, so just thought it really important to take an opportunity in this most important year to think about how we work together. Me and Miss Millers will talk about different parts of that. It sounds a little bit corny, but it's true to say that as we talk about this being the triangle of trust, that the closer that we can get alignment between what school is doing, what the messaging is between school and home, and that between school and home and the student, we're all aligned, and particularly around stuff about study, about revision, about preparation for exams, about attendance. It's really crucial that we work together to try and get the very, very best and very most consistent messaging that we can. And Miss Millers is just going to talk about some of the features there, or we will between us. Miss Millers.
Yeah, so obviously, first of all, kind of the heart of everything we do is for the students, really. So they obviously need to make sure that they are considering how we can support them. So obviously the really important things, like I said, about punctuality, making sure that they're on time, they're just trying their hardest. It doesn't matter whether they're struggling with something, just as long as they are trying their hardest, that's all we can ever ask of them. we're not expecting that everybody's going to get kind of grade 9s and everything. Everybody has different skills, but the most important thing is they persevere, they have that resilience, and they keep working. That their presentation is neat, and I know some of them do struggle with that quite a lot, but actually when it comes to this important exam year, examiners are going to have a lot of kind of scripts to mark. They need to be able to look at it and go clearly, there's the answer, perfect, I can read it, I know exactly what that says, I can mark it. Whereas if it's all over the place, there's scribbles everywhere, they're not necessarily going to have that time to really go, where can I give some marks for this? It's really important they get into that habit of presentation and making sure homework is done. We'll talk more about homework later on. And just that they're asking if they're struggling. We don't want them to kind of bottle everything up. If they are worried about something, if they're struggling, that they talk to someone, whether that is their form tutor, whether that's me, whether that's any teacher, whether it's home, that they don't bottle it up, because it is going to be a tricky year, but we want them to feel like they have achieved the most. We want them to open that envelope in August and go, I did the best I possibly could. I made the most out of that final year at STFS.
So therefore, when talk about alignment between home and school, the best thing that we can do is just to make sure that children are getting into school on time, and getting into school as regularly as possible. That if there's anything on the list here that we can offer support with, please don't hesitate to ask. If you know uniforms a struggle, if you're not sure about equipment, if you need help getting equipment or revision guides, and we'll come on to that around the kind of plans for the revision evening on the 1st of November, then please do ask. We've switched entirely, and we'll come on to homework in a little while, to class charts, away from planners, just so that there's just one single source of information for you to get information about homework, about what's going really, really well in your child's day, anything that's gone awry, and the class charts also links into what's called provision map, so that you can see how the provisions, the plans that we have in place for special educational needs map into the daily experience. Please do contact staff. We will reply within 48 hours. I think it was in Mr. Murphy's letter the other day. And please do support us in all of our rewards, all of the celebration, in the rare occasion that we might need to do sanctions. Students love, my children love looking for inconsistencies between parents, between home, school, wherever. Again, the greater the alignment, particularly around messaging about independent work, is going to be really important. Miss Millers.
I
was going to talk about this, wasn't I? Sorry, carry on. So and we have a huge duty then to you all to make sure that we're providing a really challenging, exciting, engaging, safe environment where the skills that students need are there, that the subjects are taught as well as possible, and that you're really regularly updated on students' progress, including getting that insight into homework. So it would be a strong recommendation. We'll show you how a little bit later on with class charts, to ask your child to download the class charts app, to make so that you and for you to download it too, so you can see the homework they're setting, you can see the rhythms of their day, and then to hold us to account. You should rightly expect that your child is taught absolutely brilliantly. It's my job to make sure that they're getting great homework, that homework is challenging and stretching, that they're getting work marked, and that's helping them make progress, that if they're struggling with something, they're speaking to someone and things are happening and changing. And so the tutors, initially the heads of department, Miss Millers, if that doesn't work, and following Mr. Murphy's letter, please do hold us to account and say, look, actually this doesn't seem to be going right. If you don't speak up, we don't always know, and therefore it's really key that happens, and you hold us to high standards, because we have high standards. Miss Millers.
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of just want the best for them as well, so yeah, everything we do will hopefully support them. So we've got some key dates coming up this year. So the first thing that will be coming up is the Meet the Tutor evening, which is on Wednesday the 11th of October. So there'll be an opportunity to have a discussion with your child's tutor. Then we have the revision evening, as Mr. Pike mentioned, which is on the 1st of November. We've got this little countdown going because it's it's not, it's getting quite close. So we've then got the pre-public examinations, basically our kind of mock period that we are doing our preparation for the real exams. So the 20th of November, those will start. So it's only in 68 days time. So then after Christmas, we will then have our results day on the 8th of January. So an opportunity for them to see what they get, have that feeling. And then we have parents' evening. So you'll be able to have a discussion with your, all of the teachers about how they can make the most of those last couple of months in preparation for the real exams, which will start on the 10th of May. And I think in terms of the mock exams that we're doing in November, they are actually really important because people are going to have to think about applying to different places, whether it's sixth form, colleges, apprenticeships, but the application will kind of be around January time. So we'll be looking at using those results from the mocks to help support the grades that we are kind of predicting and thinking about that students are going to get. So I think it's really important that they are revising for those mocks and not going, mocks, let's see how it goes, because
that's perfectly put, Miss Millis. That's exactly why we're doing this today. That what we don't want to do is to wait until the 1st of November, where you're going to get a really detailed insight into revision. We don't want to wait for revision. I often say to the best use of mocks, or say to the young people that the best use of mocks is us to accurately diagnose what they're doing really well and what they might be struggling with. We can't accurately diagnose what they really can do and what they really are finding hard unless we see maximum effort going into it. So we've been talking about revision with them for about 18 months now. We'll continue to talk about revision with them, but it's really key that we get a revision package in place now as part of regular homework, because that's going to help enormously. Oh, excuse me.
Sorry, apologies. Apologies. Yeah, so moving on then. Yeah, as we've kind of already mentioned, really, attendance is really important, especially in this last year. We obviously want students to feel kind of happy, as comfortable as possible in school, and I think it gives them the best chance of success if they are here. They get all of the resources that we can possibly provide. We can teach them, we can support them. Whereas if they're not here quite as much, it's a lot more difficult for us to pass on lots of information and lots of our knowledge to them. So it is kind of really important that they are here as much as possible so that we can fully make the most of this last year. And as we said, in terms of dates, there's only 240 days left until the real exam. So time is quite important now. I think also looking at this, that actually based on kind of previous results, students that were here more regularly were actually able to make more progress. They were kind of hitting their targets. They were kind of improving on their targets as well. Whereas if they were here less often, it actually ended up meaning that they were kind of hitting below where they were expected to get. So the fact that if they are here,
if I just demystify this table for a little bit for people who aren't quite so used as we are to reading educational data, if we look at summer 2023 with the provisional calculation, +5 plus 0.5 means that for the young people who were here 95% of the time or more, on average they achieved half a grade beyond expectation, beyond what the government calculate they should get based on their Key Stage 2 SATs. And I'm sure you'll all remember the pressures of Year 6 and Key Stage 2 SATs. So the government have an anticipation based on a data set about what we should get on average by attending Sir Thomas Fremantle, working hard and being here all the time. You achieve beyond expectation if you're here. You can see that for those people who are absent anything below 90%, there's a significant going backwards, particularly in this year when there hasn't been a reduction of content. So during the pandemic, and last year's Year 11 had a reduction of content that mitigates a little bit some of the impact there. But you can see with summer 2023, if you're not here, you think you're going to struggle. And so we must do everything collectively within our power to make sure that students are there and are getting every moment out of every lesson. So I'm just going to talk then briefly a little bit about our approach. We've tried just to rejig the way we approach teaching and learning, just to make sure that the students are getting the very best practice across all of their lessons. We've been introducing lots of exciting things this week to try and make sure there's lots and lots of opportunities for students of all confidence levels to engage in the lessons, whether that is with little quizzings, whether it's with whiteboards, or whether we're using kind of what we call visualizers, little cameras that help to model, scaffold, to break down and help students to understand how to approach and answer an exam question, how to improve together a piece of work. So the elements of teaching and learning is something that matters to us, and these are the features that will be happening across all of your child's lessons at all times, some of them kind of more regularly than others. The bit that I'm going to talk about in a little bit more detail is the activating prior knowledge retrieval practice. That's and I suppose to some extent independent practice. That's where we really need parental help at home, just to keep encouraging and pushing young people. Miss Millers, if you could move the slide on. The retrieval practice is mostly going to be experienced through you in homework. The homework is, and I've written home to you about it, and I know I've published at least 2 videos about homework with different levels of detail depending on how much you care about educational theory. But homework, the idea of homework is that we're constantly giving opportunities to go back over information, and that we're trying to stretch that going back over information as much as we can over as long a period of time as possible. So evidence indicates that if you go over information slowly and regularly and repeatedly, you're going to get a much higher level of retention. I'll talk about that more on revision evening, and then I do an optional session on teaching and learning and about how the teenage brain works a little bit later on in November, for any parents who want to know the theory that sits behind it. So it's the partnership here matters. Is your child doing homework? Are they doing it really regularly? What does it look like? What could they be doing? We've tried to supply a lot of information about that, and I hope it's useful. Just a little bit on theory, Miss Millers, if you could move forward.
Sorry, the next part is just reminding about class charts. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the homework, it is all recorded on class charts, and we've also put a little bit of a guide there in terms of the time allocation. So for year 11, we are looking at 60 to 75 minutes. However, that does include things like revision. That is them doing kind of the extra work outside. That is per 4 hours of learning. So for some subjects, that's kind of per week. That's for some of the option subjects, maybe slightly more than a week. Okay, but that's not just we're going to set that is them thinking, okay, I need to do some extra practice, I'm doing some extra revision as well. And if they're not sure about something, that is really important, where they go, okay, I'm going to ask, I'm not sure how to do this, I'm not sure what I need to do extra. Then absolutely, that is what we're here for. We're here to support them. Then they come and ask whichever teacher it is. I'm struggling with knowing how to revise in a certain subject. If they're still struggling after everything we've gone through, that we are still here. They just need to make sure that they're asking. So as Mr. Pike said, we don't have the physical plans anymore, but we have the class charts. All of the homework is on there, all of the behaviour is on there, and that's kind of the central system for everything there. Yeah,
absolutely. If just to talk about that and then how it links, because Miss Millers is right in saying that there's a big revision focus to the homework. All teachers are being asked that they set homework that allows students to go back over the prior lesson to prepare for the lesson before, but also to look back into year 10, into year 11, so that there should be constant revisiting of information over time. the theory kind of comes from this guy called Ebbinghaus, who was a psychologist who spent much of his career just working on memory and memory retention. And he noticed, he was working on long strings of numbers and how much he could remember, that the more times he revisited information, the higher the retention rate. So what you really, really don't want to do is to just try and revise once, and we certainly don't want people to revise once in May. Ebbinghaus noticed that he could remember nearly with near total fidelity, nearly total perfection, long strings of numbers if he revisited that information 3 times after being initially taught. So if your child has been taught something in year 10, they need to revisit that information 3 times across the next year or 18 months in order to say that we've got kind of a level of retention. The complexity and the density sometimes of exam syllabuses means that there won't be a significant revision period of time happening at the end, and actually we ask that teachers regularly review and revise throughout the course, so that should be happening. The other thing was that to help with this, that what we're saying to you now has been said to students. Miss Miller's alluded to tutor time study skills. We taught it in year 10 last year. We've rejigged it slightly and it's being taught in tutor sessions at the moment. Your children have been taught and are being taught how to do flashcards, how to do mind maps, how to do mind maps called dual coding with different images, how to develop exam questions, and indeed the theory behind it. They've had assemblies on the topic as well. So hopefully they have a really clear picture and you have a clear picture. It is the kind of understanding of the different approaches to revision that will be covered on the 1st of November, and then the theory about why and a bit more detail will be covered by me for anyone who wants to sign up to the virtual evening afterwards. Ms. Meadows, thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. So yeah, kind of back to class charts again, just briefly, that just a reminder that obviously all of the class charts, positives and negatives, are on there. And I think as brilliant as this is for the negatives, it's also fantastic for seeing those positive things that happen. We do need to remember the celebrations that where things have gone amazingly, like they've worked fantastically well, they've put in some amazing effort, they've achieved some great scores, whatever it is, but the celebrations are as important as those negatives as well. So, but I think seeing some negatives appear, it's also a brilliant way for you to support at home by going, okay, right, let's sort this out. Let's make sure we are making the most of it. Let's make sure this year is important. We don't want to be seeing lots of these negatives, and that's how you can support with that link between us and you as well with class charts. In fact, students have seen this. I've mentioned it before in my first assembly of the year, but about actually that 50% of secondary teachers estimated that 6 minutes were lost each lesson, and 12% said that 10 minutes were lost. That is a lot of time that is lost in a lesson, and I think it actually puts it kind of into perspective that is over the course of a 5-year education. That's 1 year. That's a massive amount of time, and we don't have time for that this year. And I think that's why it's so important, by that link with class charts, that we can make sure, right, kind of, come on, you're making sure you're putting your best effort in so that you can get the best and everyone around you can get the best as well. So that's really kind of important.
So we're coming towards the end of the presentation, as you may see. The other something is really important just to address and just check that you are happy with is our provision for special educational needs. You should know if your child has an EHCP or SEND support, that you should be aware of that. You should have regular contact from our SENCO. You should be aware of Provision Map, which is the website that tracks and reviews what the school has in place for your child and how that's helping. I think the bit just to say is that as we bring people on board in year 7, it does mean it's very busy for our SEND team. It doesn't mean that they're not going to get back to you, but please raise any questions and queries if you need to. Miss Millers, if you could move a slide, I think we've got a second one on this. do speak with tutors if you need to. Do speak with the Senko if you need to. The unique part for this year, and more uniquely to Year 11, is that if you think your child requires an access arrangement, what we need to do, and that is to say a way of leveling the playing field in an exam, so a word processor, they need a scribe, they need help with reading, they need rest breaks, they need a quiet space. All of these things can be assessed. What I can't do is promise that they will be allowed. We need to assess them. We need to demonstrate that it's their normal way of working over a period of time. We can't apply exam only assessments or exam only things. That we have to show that it's what normally happens in school. So if you are unclear on what that might be, or you think there's any doubt, please do raise that with the Senko, and we can tell you, or with the tutor can tell you what provisions are in place. If you think something's missing, then you can raise that with the Senko, and we can advise you about how viable it is to get something in place. Some are easier than others, some are trickier at this point. Thank you, Ms. Millers.
Yeah, perfect. And on another thing, if you have any kind of concerns of a safeguarding nature, the safeguarding email is there as well. It's monitored during office hours. You've got Mr. Payne, Mrs. L, and Mr. Murphy. So that is the email if you have any concerns regarding safeguarding, and there are other ways of doing it as well, which are at the bottom of the screen. So if you have any concerns, do let them know. And obviously we understand that kind of secondary school, and this year in particular, it's quite difficult. It's quite a tricky year. So if it does need any extra support, there is lots of supports provided by the NSPCC, and kind of supporting around mental health, these young minds as well. But if you are struggling to find how you can support, then do let us know, whether it's dropping an email to your tutor first of all, or if that doesn't work, then me or anybody else, whoever it is that you feel that needs to support you, really, because we want to make sure that, as I say, this year is as easy as possible as a year 11 could be, that we make sure that they are as happy as they possibly could be throughout this tricky year, but important year. Absolutely.
And just in terms of further support academically, I want to keep flagging the revision evening on the 1st of November, and then the follow-up virtual how to help your child revise with me. I'd also just point you to BBC Study Smart. BBC Study Smart is an arm of Bite Size. It tells you all of the things that you can be doing to help your child. And again, I just cannot stress, revising now is hugely important. I worked out there was if we're just doing between 75 minutes of revision every day between now and the start of those exams, you'd be looking at 15,000 minutes or 250 odd hours of revision in preparation for those exams, and that is before we add in Easter or half terms or revision clubs or anything like that. The longer we can spread this preparation period, the more confident your child's going to be, and that's going to make things really positive. So we really look forward to your support, and I don't think I've seen any questions in the chat, so we're going to end at this point unless anyone has anything we can help with.
Mr. Pike,
yes,
you mentioned about your videos, educational videos. Are they somewhere we can have a look at?
Yeah, so as I understand them, that they went out and they were linked with a letter sent out at the end of last term. I'm more than happy to follow that up, and that would be the educational videos about homework.
Oh, yeah, we can have a look back through our emails then.
Absolutely. There's two, depending on your level of enthusiasm. There's because someone said that's too long. So there's a shortcut version about homework, and then there's a longer one. the longer one is quite close to what I would call my virtual revision evening. So if you want to save time and have a bit more of an interactive conversation, then we can do that. It'll probably be about the 8th, 10th of November or so as well. So but it's on it's linked in the letter there and should be accessible to you. Yeah, I can get a bit carried away.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much.
Pleasure, pleasure. Anything else?
No, that's it. For me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. In which case, I'm going to say thank you, everyone, and stop recording.